You may or may not know me, of that I'm sure. Another thing that I'm sure about is that Deltarune has some crazy fans, most of which are theorists of some sort. I would know. I'm one of them. Anyways, spoilers for all endings of Undertale and all chapters of Deltarune, including weird routes, up ahead. You've been warned. Disclaimer, this is not an attack on anybody. Please do not take this personally. It's just my interpretation of Toby's writing, what Deltarune is stating about the weird route, and the prophecy so far. Please be respectful to people in the comments, and if you must disagree, which I am expecting, please be nice. So, I've been seeing a common interpretation of the weird route and the prophecy floating around recently, mostly on Reddit and YouTube, that seems a little odd. It's a theory that has no real counter for being wrong and has not a good amount, but an amount of evidence for being true, leading to a theory that very well could be correct, but would be very unsatisfying narratively and something I don't think Toby would do. So, I'll start from the beginning. To summarize this theory, it states that the girl from the Chapter 4 prophecy segment allegedly doesn't look like Susie, but Noelle. Also, she is holding a sword, and Noelle can equip the Black Shard and Jingle Blade in Chapter 4. Finally, she allegedly has a human soul in her during this poster, which seems to be what the weird route is implying is happening to Noelle after the cutscene where This theory states that Noelle was the original hero of the prophecy and was replaced by Susie at the last minute, meaning the weird route will go back on the rails of the prophecy while the normal route will stay diverted. There is a lot to unpack here, so please bear with me. First, the silhouette. Well, yes, Susie cannot equip swords. That's the only part of the illustration that does not make sense for her. The hairstyle, for instance, matches her spikier style with more volume than Noelle with a flatter, bushier side part. The proportions could honestly match either one of them, and the girl is missing antlers and deer ears, something fairly prominent about Noelle. It seems like it could match either of them, but in my opinion it's closer to Susie in shape. Next, the sword. Frankly, Noelle isn't in Chapter 3 or 4 as a party member. It is literally impossible to equip swords to her at this point. My guess as to why it's possible in the first place, if you edit your party through the game files, is that Toby and his team didn't bother adding an extra line of code to disable her from equipping the new weapons, as she could not equip the swords either way, and this line will likely be added at a later date if Noelle is to rejoin the party. Finally, love, and the soul. Yes, love does exist in the light world of Deltarune, as seen in the Light World menu, and it's distinct from Dark World level, which is equal to the chapter number, and there's a right side up part where the girl's heart should be, resembling our human souls more than the upside down white monster souls. However, this could just be a common way of representing emotional love, like the prophecy seems to imply, and it can be easily interpreted as such. To be honest, this is probably my weakest point, but the reason for it will be revealed soon enough. So what is my point? What is the magical one-size-fits-all explanation? Well, both the weird route and the normal route are following the prophecy. They're just two different interpretations of the events. In the normal route, the girl is referring to Susie, whether it was always supposed to or not. The prophecy predicts things down to a T, as shown with it predicting Lancer's line, toothpaste and then boy. The second hero, the girl with hope crossed on her heart, is Susie in the normal route. Love finding its way to the girl is referring to Suzelle. Just the casual player's interpretation of the scene. However, who is at last the girl? It has Rootbuster's symbol, so it's probably referring to Susie. And it is. The prophecy in the normal route is referring to Susie twice in two different sections, as the second hero and the dragon. At last the girl. That's my interpretation anyway. This is likely because Susie has large powers narratively and is likely the most prominent figure in the prophecy, although I honestly have no clue. However, in the Snowgrave route, this is where the intentionally vague design of the girl comes into play, as the girl with hope crossed on her heart is likely referring to Noelle on Snowgrave in my opinion, but at last the girl is still Susie. Love finds its way to the girl is where I start to dive more into ambiguity, as it could be referring to us, the player, finding our way into her body, LV or level of violence due to Birdley dying, or Chris due to the toxic relationship undertones of the whole Snowgrave route, ignoring the flower scene. I'm not using this as evidence. Please don't interpret the scene like that. God. Bringing to mind a queer girl forced to abandon her gay crush for a more heteronormative partner, and Chris forcibly losing their autonomy and identity as a non-binary person and being forced into a straight relationship. I say straight in quotes as neither of their identities have actually been changed by us, but simply repressed by a controlling force, the player. Susie is still referenced here as her part in the prophecy is somewhat irrefutable, which can be seen by the Rudebuster symbol and something very important from Gerson that says, "You have the white pen to rewrite fate." She is the main character in the prophecy no matter what, just not always a hero. Now for the narratively unsatisfying part I mentioned earlier. How is Snowgrave and Neutral, both being the prophecy in different interpretations, more narratively satisfying than just Snowgrave being the prophecy? Well, for that, I present the last prophecy. This is a big event, alluded to for all of Chapter 4 due to Ralsei's strange behavior. It will likely be a major conflict in the story, judging by Susie swearing not to let it happen at the end of Chapter 4, how much Ralsei wants Susie to not find it, and Susie's choice of eternity during Gerson, likely meaning she would rather sacrifice the world than her friends. To present such a large conflict that kindness alone would not solve, and what will be a major event in the future of the story, only for it to be dodged on the good route that most people will play first, would just feel weird. Like we were cheated out of something. It would be like if, on a pacifist route of Undertale, Asgore just went, "You weren't nice, so I'll let you live. I won't even try to fight you." Instead of this big moment where mercy is no longer an option and you have to show violence. It would just feel unsatisfying. Also, it would allude back to Undertale, with the Deltarune representing both routes of the game. Gerson in that game explains that an angel would come and empty the underground, represented by us on a pacifist and genocide route emptying the underground of monsters in two different ways, through turning them all to dust or setting the monsters free. One prophecy, two means of fulfillment. And that's what I think Deltarune's conclusion will be about. Not whether or not our heroes can defy fate to prevent the last prophecy from occurring, but how they can manipulate the prophecy's end in their favor. Hell, we already do this on the pacifist route of Chapter 3. If we recruit everyone, Tennis still gets cleaved red by Blade, as predicted, but gets fixed with the help of the Darkness off-screen and Susie. Undertale and Deltarune seem to be games about defying expectations, after all. What better way to defy expectations than to defy fate itself while still following it? But what do you think? Am I insane for saying all of this? Do you have more evidence for either side? Let me know. I know this theory might be a bit out there, but what Deltarune theory isn't? Anyway, don't forget to tune into the next one. Bye!